find him.
Welcome back, horror hunters, crypt creepers and scream queens. It is I, Gavin Tripplehorne, a.k.a. Ghoulish Gavin. And I'm more than a little freaked out. Not only do I think the long-dead horror star Constance Trewfall called out my name, but also my sharp GF777 chewed up the tape, destroying this priceless artefact, and I'll have to find a replacement take-up reel for the GF777. Thank God I was recording at the time, otherwise we'd have nothing left.
Gavin, find him.
Find who? Victor Crow? He's been missing, presumed dead, since 1992. But the bigger question is, and the one that has kept me awake at night, how is this even possible? Elle has listened to the clip and thinks it's so faint and distorted that maybe Constance is saying something else and we're having auditory pareidolia, where your brain imposes meaning on ambiguous sounds, like playing the Beatles' White Album backwards and hearing, "Paul is dead."
Gavin, find him.
I don't know. It really sounds like my name. As always, you can reach me at ghoulish_Gavin on Instagram or email ghoulishdgavin@gmail.com with your thoughts and theories. Elle is a lot smarter than me, so I hope she's right. Because if she's not, I'm being communed with from beyond the grave. I'm going to set aside my slowly unravelling mental state to pour some more audio horror into your ears. I was planning on carrying on our retrospective on Victor Crow with a deep dive into his follow-up to Ashes for the Grey Maiden, 1963's The Devil's Hour, but playing Constance's tape had another effect on me too. Namely, setting off the legal machinations of the Humboldt Foundation. I'll play you a voicemail I received the day after I released that last podcast.
Hello, this message is for Gavin James Tripplehorne. My name is Sebastian Fenwick. I am the solicitor acting for the Humboldt Foundation. I'm calling in relation to your podcast episode titled Constance Trewfall, The Fallen Starlet. In that episode, you make specific allegations concerning Julia Regina Humboldt V, which my client regards as false and defamatory. You are hereby required to remove the episode from all podcast platforms or to produce an edited version excising the offending allegations within 7 days from the time you receive this message. If you fail to comply, we will proceed without further notice to issue proceedings for defamation and to seek injunctive relief, damages, and our costs. Please contact my office immediately to confirm your compliance. Contact details are on file. This is a final demand. Goodbye.
It's been 10 days, and the podcast is still live and unedited. Ghost to the left of me, lawyers to the right, here I am, stuck in a podcast with you. I can hear Elle's eyes rolling from here. So, to really infuriate Mr. Sebastian Fenwick, I'm going to dedicate a whole episode to Julia Regina Humboldt V, or as I like to call her, the Matriarch of Horror. Julia Regina Humboldt V first met Victor Crow at his infamous improvised performance in 1957. She had been on the hunt for a performer with the same dark, twisted outlook on life to channel her own artistic ambitions. Julia had tried to perform herself 10 years earlier in a failed theatrical production of Nocturna Nocturnae, Night of Nights, an odd hybrid of horror, dance and a cappella. It lost the Humboldts a lot of money, but if there's one thing the Humboldts had, it was money. Undeterred, Julia switched from performer to patron, sinking the family fortune into a series of artistic ventures, all tinged with horror and something she called the Wyrd. The word weird, spelt W-Y-R-D, has been tied to the Humboldt lineage since the first Julius Reginald Humboldt coined the word in 1892. To truly understand Julia Regina Humboldt V, you have to understand her ancestors and the Wyrd. I've gleaned and heavily condensed this family history from F.R. Combs' seminal work on the Humboldts, From Industry to Art, A Humboldt Legacy. Julius Reginald Humboldt, born in 1810, was a Victorian industrialist who plundered the British countryside in service of empire and commerce. Mixing spiritualism with steel, he transformed his mines into crown jewels of the Industrial Revolution. After every expedition, he somehow knew exactly where to dig, always striking a rich vein of coal. It made him a wealthy man. But after one such journey, he returned changed. Withdrawn and feverish, he spoke of a place he called the Wyrd, a hidden realm he believed held the key to the Third Industrial Revolution. He became consumed by it, and in 1882 mounted an expedition to conquer the Wyrd for Queen and country. He never returned. His son, Julius Reginald Humboldt II, born in 1850, became a pastor and translator of ancient texts. Julius Reginald Humboldt II spent much of his life trying to decode his father's final writings. In his later years, Julius Reginald Humboldt had become secretive, his notes on the Wyrd written in forgotten dialects, locked behind ciphers and esoteric references. His son devoted decades to unravelling this mystery, eventually publishing his father's collected works in a book titled Into the Wyrd, a compendium of curious findings and perilous adventures beyond the known realms. This book is now impossible to find, and the British Library claims it never existed. While writing this lost tome, Julius Reginald Humboldt II said he was aided by a hooded figure that appeared throughout his research, and, increasingly, in his dreams. On Christmas morning, 1922, Julius Reginald Humboldt II was found dead in his Norfolk rectory. He was smiling, with a fresh manuscript clutched to his chest. The phonograph nearby spun endlessly, repeating Julius Reginald Humboldt II's voice, saying,
I am the Wyrd. I am the Wyrd. I am the Wyrd.
Next was Julius Reginald Humboldt III, born in 1875, a self-styled gentleman adventurer with an unshakable belief in his ancestral destiny. Julius Reginald Humboldt III was determined to walk in his grandfather's footsteps, not his father's. He scorned Julius Reginald Humboldt II's academic approach to the Wyrd, viewing it as cowardice wrapped in scholarship. He believed the Wyrd was not to be studied, but conquered. Using fragments from his father's research, he claimed to have finally located one of the many entrances to the Wyrd discovered by his grandfather. This search had drained much of the remaining family fortune, but Julius Reginald Humboldt III believed greatness demanded sacrifice. One autumn afternoon, he set out into the Forest of Dean for this entrance. He was never seen again. Julius Reginald Humboldt IV, born in 1905, was much more reserved than his boisterous father. A naturalist and amateur folklorist, Julius Reginald Humboldt IV dismissed his father's disappearance as the result of a foolish obsession. He wanted no part in old legends or inherited madness, and refused to live under the shadow of his great-grandfather's so-called destiny. Yet the Wyrd still called to him. He believed it belonged to the natural order, an ecosystem, not an enigma, and approached it as a phenomenon to be studied. He traced its influence through damp libraries, forgotten glens, and crumbling manuscripts. During his short life, he rebuilt much of the family's fortune through wise investments and quietly published several respected papers on the role of folklore in modern society. At 39, Julius Reginald Humboldt IV was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. Within months, he was bedridden. In his final days, he was visited, according to one nurse, by a tall man in an ill-fitting suit whose face no one could remember. Julius Reginald Humboldt IV's last words, spoken to his 11-year-old daughter, were, "Don't lose yourself to the weird." Which brings us to Julia Regina Humboldt V, the last of the Humboldt line, as she had no children. Did she heed her dying father's warning? Or did she embrace her inner weirdness? A young Julia Regina Humboldt took her father's final words, "Don't lose yourself to the weird," and did the opposite. She embraced it. Drawn to the Gothic and the macabre, she immersed herself in the world of horror. After the disaster of Nocturna Nocturnae, she founded the Humboldt Foundation, an arts fund dedicated to fringe theatre, boutique film, and experimental games. Julia became the power behind many a creative throne, as we have covered with Corvus Call Pictures and the horror auteur Victor Crow. Other notable projects include the Shadow Players Theatre, with their series of audio horrors during the 1980s, likened to Orson Welles' Mercury Theatre radio troupe, and the short-lived but influential video game company Crypt Code, whose one and only 1986 release, the text adventure 1158 to Brookwood, is said to be not only impossible to complete, but cursed. Publicly, Julia Regina Humboldt V was aloof, enigmatic, and driven. Privately, she was said to be controlling, cold, and single-minded. Like her forebears, she was obsessed with exploring the weird, but her way was through art. She always had suggestions to her collaborators on what stories to tell and creatures to feature in their works. And how could they refuse? She was funding them. They would receive calls in the middle of the night. Julia, woken from a nightmare, had an idea for a scene, or a line of dialogue, or a missing character. As we have seen with Victor Crow's first wife, Constance Trewfall, Julia's controlling and obsessive nature could be destructive. In return for the Humboldt Foundation's support, she expected nothing less than absolute loyalty. Some former staff, off the record, compared it to signing a deal with the devil. However, without the great horror matriarch Julia Regina Humboldt V, we would never have had the scene of Ingrid toppling from the tower in elegant slow motion in Mask of the Vampire, or the chorus of screams from the shadow players, the bells of Barrow Hollow, or the existential conversations you have with the conductor on the train in 1158 to Brookwood. As the old saying goes, pain is temporary, art is forever. Here's the odd thing, though. For someone so dedicated to the arts, someone who demanded so much from her artists it drove some to madness and others to death, why then, in 1987, did Julia Regina Humboldt V order the Humboldt Foundation to recall every copy of its work and permanently disband its funding arm? In the years that followed, Julia herself was institutionalized. Victor Crow vanished. Members of the Shadow Players disappeared or died under mysterious circumstances, and the coda of 1158 to Brookwood retreated to a monastery high in the Himalayas. Julia Regina Humboldt V's fascinating and weird body of work can no longer be seen. Presumably, every film reel, audio tape, and floppy disk is locked away in some vault at Humboldt Foundation headquarters. Today, they concern themselves only with hunting down pirate copies, stamping out bootlegs, and suing anyone who dares to speak the name Humboldt. Ah, here they are now, coming to drag me away. What the hell is going on? Why, Detective Sergeant Ward, what an unexpected pleasure.
Gavin James Tripplehorne, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm
Murder? What are you talking about?
your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you later rely on in court.
This is lunacy! Please, let me see my daughter first.
Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Let's get him to the station.
But I haven't finished my podcast!
Shit. Is this thing recording?
Hello, horror hunters, crypt keepers, no, creepers, and scream queens. Right, that's it. Sorry, I never expected to be on this side of the mic. Elle here, Gavin's daughter, jumping in. The part you would have just heard happened about 5 hours ago. Dad's been arrested on suspicion of murder. My dad is many things. He's terrible at lying. He's a truly awful cook. He's a horror fanatic, but a murderer. I mean, he only leaves the house for work. When would he find the time? I don't believe it. I can't believe it. I think DS Ward has it in for Dad, and it's not the first time the police would falsify evidence to fit their own narrative. My mate Sasha's girlfriend is a constable at the station, and she told her to tell me that they found a body last night in Fordwich Cemetery, lying in a freshly dug grave with a blank headstone, all very dramatic. But the key detail is this: the body they found was missing its left hand. DS Ward must have then put 2 and 2 together and come up with my dad. If anyone out there listening is a lawyer or a solicitor, I'd love some legal advice right about now. Email ghoulishgavin@gmail.com or DM me through Dad's Insta, ghoulish_Gavin. What does Dad say at the end? Oh yeah, do have nightmares. I know I will.
Gavin's Graveyard Gold is a Wyrdworks production featuring Daniel Carter-Hope as Gavin Tripplehorne, Holly Janowski as DS Ward, Megan Carter as Elvira Tripplehorne, Jessamy James as Constance Trewfall, Steve Calcott as Sebastian Fenwick. Recorded, mixed and edited at 5A Studios. Written and directed by Paul Williams.